Good morning, everyone. I'm Susan Demas, the executive editor here at Lincoln Square, and it's Tuesday morning. So joining me as always is Edwin Eisendrath, who hosts It's the Democracy Stupid right here on Lincoln Square on Friday afternoons. That is also the name of his Substack and his show on Heartland Signal in Chicago, which you can catch over the weekends on radio and online. Edwin, thank you for being here.
Good morning, Susan.
Good morning. So let's take a look at how things are going for Donald Trump, because they're not going very well. As you can see, he has managed to outdo his performance during his first term, where he is now sitting at negative 22. He also is performing far worse than his predecessor, Joe Biden. And I think this is an interesting place for us to start our conversation today, Edwin, because we were talking about some of the news of the day, and Spirit Airlines has gone under, and both Trump and his administration have been very clear about why that is. It's all Joe Biden's fault. And this is just a running theme. Whether it's immigration, the agricultural trade deficit, inflation, the economy, Trump has one answer, and that's the last guy did it all, don't blame me. Now, if we were maybe 90 days into his presidency, people might be giving him a bit of a break, but we're well into a year of his second term. So, Edwin, let's talk about this, because Trump has always portrayed himself as being strong, the epitome of strength, yet all he ever wants to do is blame other people for any failures, which of course is not what a leader does. So I'm going to leave it up to you. What do you think is going on with Donald Trump in always trying to pass the buck on to Joe Biden?
Susan, the last place I want ever to be is in that man's head. I don't want to go there. It's an ugly place. Look, Joe Biden saved Donald Trump's hind end. Donald Trump's mishandling of a global pandemic killed lots of Americans, right?
Killed over 1 million people died in the COVID pandemic here in America.
Some big portion of that is Donald Trump's mishandling of that. And he didn't just mishandle it and kill people. He mishandled it and turned Americans against each other, right? He turned states against each other. He said, I'm not going to give you PPE. You go fight each other for it, right? Joe Biden straightened all of that out, got the country healthy again, got shots in every arm, and managed to end this pandemic. And he managed to rebuild a shattered economy in a way that was the envy of the world by the end of his 4 years. Joe Biden made a number of mistakes, for sure, on the border. Yep. And most biggest mistake of all, he didn't put Donald Trump in jail where he belongs, and hold these people accountable for their crimes in the first term. But he saved Donald Trump's ass. And Donald Trump, all he can do is turn around and blame everybody because he cannot take responsibility for anything ever. He is unfit to lead. I mean, I wouldn't have him row a rowboat across a lake if I were in it. You know what? Right. He is just unfit for any level of leadership, and we've given it to him, and he's proving every day that all he can do is destroy things and point in other directions. He's wrecked our economy. He's wrecked public health. He's wrecked our ability to do scientific research. He's put America behind for decades. All the while he looks in the camera and says, we're back, we're hot. He's an idiot.
It's the hottest country.
Hottest. He's he's an idiot, and he's dangerous. And he's got this administration full of fools. And I know we'll talk about Iran and the incredible disaster that is. Or the Pope and what he's doing there. I mean, nothing this man is doing is helping Americans. Not one thing. Not one thing. And so his poll numbers stink because despite the fact that they've captured most of the press, Americans are like, okay, well, I know it says everything's great. I know it says everybody else is to blame, but like, look at the gas prices. I mean, look at the airlines are closing. I mean, how am I supposed to move forward? And you know what? If you're president, the buck stops there.
Yes.
About that gas, blame Joe Biden for that, which he does. But it's because he closed the Strait of Hormuz. By the way, not Iran. The Strait of Hormuz was open before we did this dumb war.
Right. Yes. We were all better off before Donald Trump went to war with Iran, except Iran. Iran has come out of this pretty good. Their sanctions have been lifted. They're in control of the Strait of Hormuz. And they've made Donald Trump look like a fool with Legos every day.
Yeah, all of that's true. I'm not sure they're better off. It's hard to know, really. We're going to get no truth from either the Iranians or the Trump administration.
Right.
Right. They both lie all the time. So it's really
right.
hard.
And obviously thousands of people have died in the war, but this is the Iranian government has not exactly shown a great deal of concern for its own people, given the fact that it has routinely put down any kind of protest in a very violent fashion.
Yeah.
However, in terms of its standing in the world, it would be hard to say that Iran has come out of this war worse than when it began.
Well, right now they're doing better for sure. But we are in the middle of this war. I know Pete Hegseth says, no, we're not. The war is over. But the war is far from over. Susan, on that point, we're blockading your ports, right? So just think back on the Civil War. The siege of Petersburg lasted 292 days. During that time, most of the time, there was no fighting. So were we not in a civil war? I mean, the Battle of Stone River ended in January of 1863, and it was pretty much quiet. There were some skirmishes until Chancellorsville 5 months later. Like, did Lincoln win 4 civil wars? Did he lose 2 and then win the last one? It's utter BS that they're talking. We're in the middle of one war, and they are so, and then today or yesterday, Admiral Kane is like inventing this thing. It's beneath the threshold of major combat operations. That is like gobbledygook speak to try and justify this. Oh no, these are multiple wars, not one war. It's one war. The War Powers Act is in place. It's an illegal war. They have to go to Congress. And you know what? I don't blame the president for this. I blame Congress and the Republicans for this. They are obliged by law to take this up, and they are hiding under their desks.
Well, every day, it's like living in 1984 with this administration because, war is only what they tell you war is. This is a different combat operation.
Yeah.
They want to define all the terms and they want to create reality. And, the reality is how much gas costs us all when we go to the gas station to fill up our tanks. They can't change that reality, but they're doing their best. We can listen to our Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, trying to explain to us little people what's really going on here, because it's not war.
Then strategy, it's also humanitarian. By breaking Iran's illegal stranglehold, we're protecting the lives and livelihoods of sailors from dozens of countries, securing global energy routes, and preventing shortages that hit the world's poorest people the hardest. Once again, America is using its strength to lift up others. Iran is trying to subjugate the world.
Okay, so let's start with the strait was open before we closed it. So let's just, right, 1. 2, Pete Hegseth is saying we're using our incredible military to reopen that strait for the good of the world. I wish he would, but in fact, that's not what's happened. The strait isn't open. So he can say it's open all he wants. Donald Trump has said it's open, but ships are not freely moving through that strait. So I'm sorry, what? It would be good for the world if the strait were open. There is all kinds of things, not just oil, that goes through that strait that matters for the world. That's why it was so terrible that they were so dumb that they let it be closed in the first place. And that they told Iran, they showed Iran that it could actually close the strait. This is entirely on them, and they haven't opened it, which is bizarre, because he's standing up there saying we're doing this humanitarian thing for the world and opening a strait that we closed, that he has not in fact opened. Dumb liar. I mean, how stupid does he think the world is? Well, I don't know. He looks in a mirror. That must be his standard.
Well, Trump has been talking a lot about his own intellect. That was one of his favorite subjects yesterday, and I think we have a great clip of that.
Opinion, anybody running for president or vice president should take a cognitive test. And no president has ever taken one except me. I've taken 3 of them, and I've aced each one. 1 in the first administration, 2 over here. And whenever they get a little sassy, like, does he still have it? Does he still have what it takes? I say, all right, I'll take another one. And they are hard. There are many people in this room I know that are smart. They're not going to ace them. There are many people standing back there, the fake news media, that I'd like to have them. You know, the first question is very easy, and they always show the first question is, you have a lion, a bear, an alligator, and what's another good? A squirrel, okay? Which is the squirrel? So they show that question, and then the first 4 or 5 questions they get a little more difficult. By the time you get to the middle, they're tough.
I'm so embarrassed to be an American right now.
I'm not. I'm embarrassed by government, Susan, but look at those. Go back to your very first slide. Despite the biggest propaganda effort ever, Americans can't stand this. We figured it out. We're going to kick him out of office. We have 2 primaries today. You know, Americans don't like this. I mean, I go back to when he sent his armed troops into my city. And, you know, what Americans did, not Democrats, but Americans, they stood up to it and they figured it out. And what Americans did in Minneapolis, and 2 died doing it. I am proud of our country. We are under the biggest attack we have ever been under. They have all of the power, and yet we are fighting back, and we're going to beat them. So I'm really proud of us. But God help it, we have the worst government we've ever had, led by the most dangerous man who's ever been in office. He is, I mean, I don't care about his cognitive tests, but there's a reason why he's had to take as many as he's had. There are people close to him who have questions about his fitness. I mean, why else would he have taken 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 of these tests? People are worried about him, and he's dangerous. But we have figured it out, and we're going to kick him out. 2 primaries today worth noting. This is in Indiana, right next to me, right south of you. Trump is on his retribution tour, trying to get rid of all those Republicans who refuse to gerrymander the state. Mm-hmm. We'll see how that goes. This could be a huge, huge defeat for MAGA, or could be a win, unclear. And over in Ohio, you know, we're gonna lock in Vivek Ramaswamy as the Republican nominee for governor, because DeWine is term limited, and he'll be up against the Dr. Pepper ticket, Dr. Amy Acton and David Pepper running on the Democratic side. And I think we could take back the governorship in Ohio and finally right that wrong state. And
Amy Acton will actually be with us next Monday on the weekly assignment.
Oh, so, how great!
Yeah, don't miss that one.
Yeah. So I mean, we have a lot to be proud of, facing an attack that is as dangerous to Americans as World War II was. I mean, World War II was a threat to freedom around the world, and if the Nazis had won in Europe and if Japan had prevailed in the Pacific, we would have been the lone democracy, you know, in our hemisphere, and it would have been very tough. That didn't happen. Now, we're the ones who are at threat of losing our democracy, and Americans are fighting back. I mean, they don't just want to get rid of our democracy. What they are doing to erase the diversity in this country is so disgusting. I mean, you just think that Pete Hegseth, on top of his blithering idiocy about this war, has managed to fire anybody in leadership who's Black or a woman in the military. He's not looking for talent to fight these battles. He's looking for video images he likes to fight this war. I mean, that's like saying, I've opened the strait, I'm a humanitarian, when it hasn't happened. It's just fantasy land. And we live in a real, and military stuff is very real. You know, you can make shit up you can make stuff up all day long, but that doesn't make it real.
Yeah.
And that's what, like, okay, gas prices are down, Donald Trump says. They're down. They were much higher, a year ago. It's just not true. It's not even close to true. And Fox can say it, and Newsmax can say it, and it can be pushed through the right-wing media, but people, they see it with their own eyes, and eventually they're going to say, you know what, they're lying to me about this. What else have they lied to me about? And then there's going to be a run on the bank. So he's heading down, but it's going to collapse.
So when I said that I was embarrassed to be an American, this is why, Edwin. Listening to that press conference, if you can call it that, from the president, where there's nothing about that screams, we are a democracy. It was canned laughter from supporters. It was going after the press as the enemy. It was a mad king bragging about being able to recognize a picture of a squirrel. That's not what this country should be.
Totally agree with you.
But to your point, there are a lot of Americans who are waking up, including many who voted for him. And I think we have a couple clips of some MAGA voters who are now filled with regret, which is interesting to take a look at.
That'll be fun to hear.
Yeah.
I am a 3-time loser. I voted for him 3 times. I believed in his vision. Now, I mean, everything is going wrong.
Like initially, and then it's like you woke up Monday morning and it's like, oh, we're bombing Iran now. Freaking gas is pushing $5 a gallon.
So it's
welcome
great,
home, guys. Welcome home.
We're happy to have you. Hope to see you at the next No Kings protest, and definitely at the ballot box in November. But I feel like those comments really belie one of Donald Trump's core promises for both of his terms, which is, I alone can fix it. That was the promise of Donald Trump. Don't worry about the details. He's a business guy. He's going to figure it out. He's going to drain the swamp. He's going to do what needs to be done and what nobody else has the courage to do. But when he gets into office, what does he do? It's all Joe Biden's fault. Joe Biden did all this. Your gas prices are up because of Joe Biden. Immigration, that's Joe Biden. Farmers struggling, that's Joe Biden. That's not fixing it. That's a toddler who's throwing a tantrum.
And look, while he's busy blaming Joe Biden, he's busy lining his own pocket, his family's pocket. The most corrupt administration ever. So he can be blaming other people and saying, look over there, I'm bombing here, I'm not bombing here, the strait's open, the strait's closed. Meanwhile, it's all going into his pocket. That's where the swamp is being drained. Oh, I'm going to raise private money to pay for my ballroom. Wait, what? We just heard yesterday that the Republican budget proposals have $1 billion of taxpayer money for his ballroom. I mean,
$1 billion.
Come on. Insane, right? And they are approving taxpayer bailouts for their supporters that sue the government, and then we end up paying them out of our taxpayer money. It's just revolting. And
not to mention what his family has done between Jared Kushner in the Middle East. Don Jr. is a defense contractor. Eric has gotten massive wealth through crypto.
Yep. It's completely corrupt. So he can point wherever he wants to point, but we know where to look now. Right. I mean, those days are over when he can do that and get away with it. Now he can still fool up some reporters who feel like they have to report on it and treat him as if he's legit because he has the office. Look, I think we have to stop treating Republicans as a legit party. And I think we have to stop treating the Supreme Court as a legitimate court. One has been captured by fascists determined to destroy not just the democracy, but the fabric of American life. To say to Black people, if you get hired, any company that hires you, we're going to sue and say, why didn't you hire a white person instead? I mean, they're suing the New York Times because a white man didn't get a promotion. This is
Well, and of course, last week,
Mhm.
since our last conversation, the Calais decision came down from
Yeah, I want to
SCOTUS.
talk about that too.
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about how the Supreme Court has just given the absolute green light to gerrymandering and what that's going to mean for Democratic representation and for African American representation, Edwin.
John Roberts his career has been focused on getting rid of the Voting Rights Act. So before we get to what it means for voters and for voting rights, what it means for the rule of law is that we are in a very dangerous place because we have an illegitimate Supreme Court. Because the Chief Justice has made his career not on jurisprudence, on protecting the law, on helping us understand what the law is, but in using his position to be a legislator, to take all the time he could to be a more powerful legislator than bipartisan Congress.
Yeah, they essentially rewrote the 15th Amendment.
They absolutely right. So and when you do that, you end up weakening the rule of law in America. You end up weakening the trust in courts. This is not legitimate Supreme Court work. And let me just lay out what I am not sure I'm recommending this, but let's start talking about it so that we can move the window a little bit. If you're the next president, you say, I'm going to enforce the Voting Rights Act. I don't care what the Supreme Court said. This was an illegitimate set of decisions from Holder to Brnovich to all the way up through Calais. They were illegitimate political decisions. We're going to enforce the Voting Rights Act. Supreme Court, you can't do anything about it. And you know what? If I'm the Speaker of the House, I say, you know what? No one who won an election in an illegal district, one that violates the Voting Rights Act, gets seated. And then, you know what? The Republicans would do that. Let's just be tough. I mean, I'm not sure I'm recommending that, because that is a very dangerous thing to recommend, because it says our system of government, our Constitution, no longer works. But that isn't on us. It's on the people who broke it. And John Roberts is a leader of one of the most important branches of our government, and he broke broke trust, and he decided to use that job for a political end. And I'm not sorry, when you decide to play politics, the other two branches can play back.
Well, and this was just the latest of a series of decisions that I would say have broken our government and the Constitution. I mean, let's not forget that years ago, the Supreme Court, a less conservative court, essentially rewrote the Second Amendment and put a bunch of language in there that never appeared.
The Heller decision took the Second Amendment is the shortest amendment in the Constitution, right? And they lopped off the first 13 words. Right. They said the first 13 words we don't understand, and it's got maybe a comma at the end. We're not sure what that means, so we're just going to get rid of it entirely. Right. And they changed 100 years of our understanding of gun rights in America. Absolutely right. And when they could get away with that, I mean, I think that is the threshold here. They figured out they could get away with changing the Constitution, and they were suddenly drunk with their power.
Right. And then in 2022, we saw that they reversed almost 50 years of Roe v. Wade with the Dobbs decision. And the Fifth Circuit last week instituted the biggest abortion ban we have seen since that decision.
Oh, wait, don't Republicans, don't they object to nationwide bans by the judiciary? The Supreme Court say, oh, we're done with that?
Right. Apparently, and the Supreme Court did stay that decision. They did.
For a couple of weeks.
But however, it was in effect over the weekend. They didn't rush in to do that, as they have with so many decisions on the shadow docket that have benefited Donald Trump, especially with his deportation agenda. And then let's not forget, in 2024, just months before the presidential election, the Supreme Court told Donald Trump,
he was a kid.
Enjoy your criming. You're immune. And you cannot tell me that didn't have an impact on the election, because when you have the Supreme Court up there saying he's the president, so it's okay, that's a green light to voters who may have been on the bubble. And they said, well, he's not convicted. The Supreme Court said that he has immunity. So yeah, they're all a bunch of crooks. So maybe I'll just go ahead and vote for him. And this Supreme Court has made so many absolutely critical decisions that have rewritten whole amendments of our Constitution.
Yeah.
We've got the 14th Amendment is being considered right now with birthright citizenship, a case, frankly, they never should have taken in the first place.
They rewrote it with the Anderson decision, which was Colorado, who had a trial and had evidence and said Donald Trump committed insurrection. We can't put him on the ballot.
Right.
And the court, and this was, by the way, Republican nominees and Democratic nominees said, well, what the Constitution says could cause chaos, so we can't let that happen. And that's not their job. That's not their job.
You know what caused chaos? Donald Trump and MAGA on January 6th, 2021, when they tried to overturn a fair and free election by violence.
Yep, totally right. And have not been held accountable.
No.
And the ones who were, he pardoned.
Right.
Yep.
And is giving six-figure settlements to out of our tax dollars.
Yeah, disgusting. You left out Citizens United in that list.
Yes, and
overturned bipartisan campaign finance laws. Bipartisan, right. Because God knows the congressmen in both parties know how much time they're spending fundraising, and they don't like it. And they agreed that it was corrupting, and John Roberts and his crowd knew better.
Yeah. And, this money in politics is corrosive all across the board. I mean, we've seen that billionaires like Elon Musk have completely corrupted the system. He had his sweepstakes for the 2024 election. And we've seen how people like Jeff Bezos and the folks at Palantir, how they're able to exploit the system and how they have pumped so much money into the Republican Party. But this has been extremely bad for the Democratic Party, too. When you have extremely wealthy people who are able to solely finance campaigns, that totally skews the system.
I agree with that.
As far as who is being represented.
I totally agree with that.
It's just been so corrosive, and really 2010 was such a watermark for what we have been dealing with in this country. So
Susan, I want to just hang on. I want to give you an optimistic note.
Okay.
Because while it has completely corrupted those who are in office, all this money, it hasn't been corrupted us. So when Elon Musk went to Wisconsin to say there's a Supreme Court race, we must win, and was paying like everybody as much money as he could, right? He was just handing it out, and they got slaughtered. The good people of Wisconsin took his money and voted for the other guy. I mean, I'm all for that. And in Illinois, we just had a Senate primary, and they were all pretty good candidates, but one was the candidate of money.
Right.
And he had out fundraised everybody, and he didn't win.
Yeah.
Because people are beginning to say, you know what, we can't go down there. I mean, we don't have very many powers, we voters, but we do have that power, and it remains the ultimate one where we get to say no. And I want to remind everybody that in Hungary, they did not have a free and fair election. They did not. The everything about it was tipped to Fidesz and Viktor Orban. But the overwhelming turnout, the overwhelming opposition to the enslavement that they were put under by their own autocrat ended it. And we can do that here too, even when they try and cheat. Yeah,
we can. And we have a huge opportunity with the 2026 election. But we should talk about the mad dash to gerrymander in red states in the South.
Yes, I'm sorry. I took a detour on Calais. So they want to make sure that I mean, just to be clear, the maps we're looking at are congressional maps and what they will do to redistrict the South. But they are going to take this to state legislative maps, to state council maps. They are going to make sure that if you are Black, you cannot get elected in the South.
Right.
The old Confederacy is going to look like it looked in 1947, and large populations will not be able to elect the people of their choice. They will not have a say, and no one who looks black will get elected in the South. It's beneath. There aren't words for it. It's so disappointing. It's just it's beneath words, because I mean, I'm old, but I was alive when the Voting Rights Act was enacted. I was a boy. But for most of my life, you got to see that law working and American democracy becoming more vital, more inclusive, stronger. And now this incredible move in the other direction is and it's race-based. It's just in every way disappointing. It's not about talent. It's not. I mean, Clarence Thomas says, remarkably, the 14th Amendment says you should be allowed to vote. Doesn't say anything about maps. So why do we even talk about gerrymandering? But of course, by map making, you can make someone's vote count more than someone else's vote. Mm-hmm. I mean, those guys in Wyoming have 2 senators, and the population of Wyoming is smaller than the population of Chicago. I mean, go figure. I don't have 2 senators. They got 2 senators. Their votes count more than mine in the United States Senate.
Yeah.
And so map making matters. Now, I get the Senate is locked in, but Congress wasn't supposed to be that way.
We're getting to the point where whether or not you have true political representation completely depends on where you happen to live at the moment. So if you are a Republican,
you are
right
now, which is beyond imagination.
But if you're a Republican living in California, which is the state that has more Republicans than any other state because it's the biggest, state in the country, you are looking at the prospect of having zero representation under what the Supreme Court just permitted. Same thing in Louisiana, a state where Democrats are at least about 40% of the population. They may now have 0 Democratic states. When you move there, that probably wasn't a consideration. You were probably looking at your kids' schools. You were probably looking at, what kind of house you could buy. You may have had to have gone there for work. You probably were not thinking, oh, if I go here, I essentially am signing away all of my rights because I happen to be of a different political party than the majority in this state. And suddenly I have no representation. I don't see how that is a recipe for any kind of a sustainable future for this country if we're that balkanized, Edwin.
And I would be terrified if America was that divided. But we're
not. But thanks to the Supreme Court,
we have a minority that wants power it doesn't deserve, and is trying to impose their will on the rest of us. I mean, some of them think women shouldn't vote, and they say it proudly. They say the vote should be determined by the head of the household, and that's the man, right?
Well, Pete Hegseth and his preacher have been pretty open about that.
Right? This is not the country people have fought. Their view is not the view of America that we have fought and died for, that we have raised our flag for, that we have fireworks on the 4th of July for. It's not the view of America that's led to those barbecues and those, or even to Memorial Day, put flags, on cemeteries for those who fought for us. This is not their view of America. Is the one that we beat in the Civil War. And it is not sustaining. It's not a path to a prosperous future. It's not a path to, and you see this in just to jump now is a big jump. But if that's your view of the world, then you cannot see a future, which is why Donald Trump cannot end this thing in Iran, because he doesn't have a vision of a future for American prosperity and America's place in the world. His vision is one that he cannot enact on a world stage that is 150 years outgrown him.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, I think Trumpism is a suicide pact because there is no real future that Donald Trump and his allies are offering America. It's a future where Palantir is essentially running the country with a few oligarchs, and nobody has jobs. There are data centers as far as the eye can see that are sucking up all of our natural resources. And we probably bulldoze half of our national parks so that
this week they want to get rid of the bison out of public lands.
Right.
Like, right. Oh, we're once again having that fight.
Right. So what I would say is, Donald Trump on the campaign trail, I'll fix everything. You can trust me. I'm a big, important business guy. I know what a squirrel looks like. When he's in office, it's whining about Joe Biden. It's giving money to his billionaire friends, stealing as much of your taxpayer dollars as possible for he and his family. And there are no solutions. His solutions are that gas is probably going to hit $5 within the next few weeks. His solution is to never have a plan to get us out of Iran. His solution is to go and inflict more tariffs after this Supreme Court even told him that he couldn't. He is offering nothing for the American people, which is why we need to do what people did in Hungary, as you pointed out, Edwin. Show up in November and give Republicans the absolute ass kicking of their lives.
Yeah, and God forgive me, shout out to Marjorie Taylor Greene for reminding absolutely everybody that there were victims in the Jeffrey Epstein case and that Donald Trump promised to make all of that public. And then Donald Trump found that his name, he was told this by Pam Bondi when she was there, his name is all over those files. And so they won't release them. Right? I mean, this is what we're dealing with.
Right. He breaks the law every day.
Susan, his name is all over those files. He actually was competing. I think he's in a contest with himself to see whether he can put his name on more things in Washington than are in those files. He's kind of like, oh, I can put my name on this. I can put my name on that. I can. Right. Yeah. And how much money did he spend painting the reflecting pond blue? I mean, right. Yeah, there we are.
For a dumb photo op so he could say that it looked better than under Obama.
Right, but that view of the Lincoln Memorial there, he wants to block that with his triumphal arch anyway.
Right. And we'll definitely be watching this budget fight because $1 billion for a ballroom that Donald Trump promised wouldn't take any taxpayer dollars. I mean, that is the boondoggle to end all boondoggles.
Look, we have to use this budget battle to reorient the government back towards what the American people need. We have to strip billions of dollars from this bloated ICE and CPB, right? We have to say no money for American gulags. We have to take all of that money, and then we have to say to the billionaires, you know what, pay your fair share and hire some IRS agents to make sure you do. And then, you know what, we'll use it. I mean, think of them, the millions of people are being thrown off their insurance right now who can't afford it because they got rid of, the subsidies. So once again, we have massive numbers of uninsured, making healthcare for everyone more difficult because they're now getting all their healthcare in emergency rooms, which is making hospitals go broke. So again, rural hospitals, bye-bye. They do less and less and less, and then they're going to go. So I don't know, all you farmers out there, none of this is good. None of this is good for agricultural communities across America. I mean, those of us who live in big cities, we have more options. We're going to be okay. We're going to fight back, but we can take care of ourselves. You know what? You need a little help, and we want to help you. But these guys, they just want to take advantage of you.
Absolutely.
I don't get it.
Yeah. Before Donald Trump took office, millions of more people had health care. It was more affordable. Gas was under $4 a gallon. Inflation was heading down. The GDP was at record levels. I mean, he's done a lot in this second term. None of it has been good.
Not any of it. And how could the worst cabinet in American history do any good? Really? I mean, what a bunch of losers. And
they didn't.
He makes every decision himself.
Do any good? That was not their intention. It was a smash and grab.
Yes. That's right. Can we possibly have job X, but not do job X, but instead get sent overseas to make some deal to line our own pockets and sell American peace?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we deserve better. The ex-MAGA voters, they deserve better as well. And I hope that America will be stepping up with our next election to send Donald Trump quite a message. Edwin, when we talk next week, we'll take a look at what happened in Indiana and Ohio this evening. Looking forward to seeing how those primaries shaped up, and of course, we'll continue to follow all of the gerrymandering battles that are heating up, especially in the South. But again, as always, Edwin, thank you for being here on Tuesday,
Yeah,
and thanks to all of you.
And wait, I want to plug Friday. I'm talking to David Roberts. He is great. He spent his career thinking about how politics and climate change work together, and he does a fabulous podcast about that. But lately, he's been thinking more about politics.
Yeah,
very, very interesting man.
Yeah, David used to write for Vox.
Yep.
And he is one of the sharpest people that you can follow on social media. And I know it's not his day job to be a media critic, but he's excellent at it.
Yep. So I'm looking forward to talking to him Friday right here.
Yep. Don't miss that one. That will be on at 1:00 Eastern, right here on Lincoln Square. It's the Democracy Stupid with our very own Edwin Eisendrath.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.